Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be ranking the last 10 eyeshadow palettes I have brought into my collection. It's been a while since I've done one of these videos and you guys always seem to like them. Although the last one that I did up in the cards, I honestly could not remember when that was, but these palette purchases, one or two of them were gifts as well, span like the last few months. I know one was a Christmas/birthday gift and took me a while because I actually haven't been purchasing as much makeup recently, specifically eyeshadow palettes, but I've got a few good ones in here, a few I haven't touched. So let's go ahead and rank them. Like I've done in my previous videos, I'm going to rank the last 10 palettes I bought and I'm going to rank them from least favorite all the way to favorite. And a lot of Natasha in here. I've gotten some Natasha recently. Okay, so palette number 10 in this ranking is the Menagerie Cosmetics Pastel Pup palette. I purchased this from my friend, Rare Beauty Envy, here on YouTube. She's also on TikTok now. And she had this palette and wasn't using it, decluttered it, and I purchased it from her. Because I remember a while ago, I really wanted this palette. But it's this far down because I've used it only a couple of times, and to be frank, I've gotten another pastel palette, Cookies if you can guess which one it is, that I was more interested in using, and so I've been reaching that one when I went pastels and not this one. But I still think it's a really cute palette. This shade unfortunately came shattered when I got it, so I did have to repress that one, but it did repress pretty nicely. Overall, I'm going to keep it because I do like the shades, but I'm not reaching for it as much as I thought I would just because I got a different pastel palette because it's spring and everyone's coming out with pastel palettes, but specifically this one brand who had not come out with a pastel palette before. Next palette, palette number 9. This is a mini Natasha Denona palette. This is the mini Metropolis palette. And this is so low because I love the original Metropolis palette. It's one of my favorite Natasha palettes ever. I have to redo it because I've gotten more palettes. I did re-rank my Natasha palettes a few months ago. I'll throw that video up in the cards as well. But this one, I feel like they did not do a good job of really distilling the Metropolis palette here. Honestly, I could probably hold this up and say it's the mini gold palette and people would probably believe me. There's not enough other shades because like the reason I love the Metropolis is because it's like a grungy rainbow of shades. And out of that grungy rainbow, you chose these to make them mini.
No.
So this is not my favorite mini palette. I really got it because I wanted to review and compare it to the original to see if it was the same great quality, which I have to say, I appreciate the fact that Natasha's minis are the same formula, the same great quality as her big palettes. Because I have seen from other higher end companies, their minis are shit quality compared to their bigger regular size palettes. So I can confirm it is the same great quality, same great formula, but I have a gripe with the color story. So if you're interested, if you like these shades, hell yeah, pick up a mini. I actually have a bunch of the minis. Where are they? In this little mug right here. Because I love the fact that she keeps the quality consistent and you can try her formula in a much smaller package. So quality is great. Color shades, I think they could have picked better shades from the Metropolis for the mini. All right, next, I have another Natasha palette, and this one I kind of jumped on because the color story reminded me of Modern Renaissance. And my Modern Renaissance, if you weren't following me back then, it actually went bad. It did expire. The shades were not as nice or blending out as nicely as they used to. So I saw this and I jumped. So this is the Natasha Denona Retro palette. And I have to admit, I've only dug into this once or twice. The shades are really pretty. Honestly, this is a beautiful Valentine's Day palette, which I believe it was a Valentine's Day release. But I have another palette in here that is the same color story that I like more. Just like from the presentation, from the way the shades are arranged. It's still great quality. Like I don't have a gripe with the quality of this palette. Again, it's more so the fact that I kind of bought this to fill a hole in my collection I thought I had, but it turns out I really don't have that hole, right? That sounds a bit nuts. But I also have not rearranged this palette. I've noticed that I love my Natasha palettes more after I rearrange them. So I think I need to pop these out and just rearrange them. And I think it's going to be so much nicer. Because I've rearranged, I think, one or two of the other palettes that are in here. Because I don't like the way that she arranges her color stories. I'm not a huge fan. But I have to say, quality is good. Color story, I think, is not terrible. But again, I've got another palette in this same list that is the same color story that I was gravitating towards a little more. So that's why it's in number 8. This is palette number 8. The next palette, actually the next two palettes are palettes that I bought again from my good friend Rare Beauty Envy. She's got like 3 screen names now and I forget which one is which. But I purchased the pumpkin spice palette from her, from Too Faced. Now, I know. I ragged on this, and I was hoping that like getting this, it would be one of those palettes where I talked shit about that I ended up actually really liking. And I will say a point in its favor, the color story looks a lot nicer in person, and I had never seen this palette in person before. Do I think it's pumpkin spicy? No. No. This is the only spot that is pumpkin spicy. There's like 4 oranges, and then like, what are these pastels over here? Like, do I need those? No. But I was intrigued. She was decluttering it and selling it pretty cheap, and I just couldn't resist. I really wanted to try it. So I've only tried this a couple of times. I'm definitely going to be pulling this out more towards the end of this year as we get into actual fall, and we'll see if it lives up to the hype. Because I know Too Faced quality has just taken a nosedive in the last few years. They used to have really good palettes in this tin packaging. Actually, one of my favorite palettes of all time is the Sweet Peach palette. That is one of the best eyeshadow palettes in my entire collection, and I keep going back to it. Like, I have all these eyeshadow palettes, and I go back to that Sweet Peach palette over and over and over again. So I guess my hope is that this is going to be another Sweet Peach. I don't know. I have not tested it enough to say if the quality is there, but that's why I got this. And so this one is like kind of right in the middle at, I don't do numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is number 6. Maybe. Why do I put myself through this? Why do I make countdown lists when I know I don't like math and I can't keep count of stuff? I don't know why. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nope, I lied. So pumpkin spice was number 7. So coming in at number 6. I should just number these beforehand. I don't know why I do this to myself. Again, like I said, another palette I bought from Rare Beauty Envy Victoria. The Naked 3 palette. So I had this palette. It was actually, I think, early on in my makeup collection. This was one of the first palettes that I did purchase. I had like gift cards and like money from family, and I loved the Naked like 2, and I really wanted the Naked 3 when it came out. Let me just fold it back like this so I can hold it up. So I had this, and I made the, I guess, unfortunate mistake of lending it to my grandmother. My grandmother only goes for like super like neutral kind of eyeshadow. She doesn't really wear makeup that much, but when she does, she goes for like neutral looks. And she knew I had a lot of makeup, so I lent her this palette, and then I never got it back. And then I moved, because we used to live together. So I lent her the palette, I never got it back, and then I moved, and I realized I was actually kind of missing this palette. Especially because I am panning the Naked 2. So it did make me feel nostalgic. I was looking into it. I did not think it was still available. It actually is, as I believe, still available for purchase from most retailers, but I thought it was discontinued. So when I saw Victoria declutter this, I was like, I will immediately buy that. Please let me have it, because she barely used it. Like, the brush still has the thing on it. I don't even think this looks swatched. Like, this looks brand new. So I bought it from her. I don't regret this one because I remember loving the palette when I had it, and I'm actually really sad that I kind of gave it away. So I bought this one back into my collection. So it's right here in the middle. Yeah. 3, 4. Okay, so now we're past the halfway mark. These are palettes that I really like, and I'm glad that I brought into my collection. So the first one is from Lunatick Cosmetic Labs. So this is coming in at 1, 2, 3, 4. Palette number 5. This is the Vampira palette. And can we just take a minute to appreciate the packaging? And then you open it up, and this is can we focus? Can we focus? Thank you. This is stunning. Lunatick Cosmetic Labs just bodies the packaging every time, and I love the colors. It's a really simple kind of quint, but it gives you everything you need for like a good smoky eye, and this just screams fall. So the fact that it's this fall color story, I love the quality of the shades, and I love the packaging. Like, this could just stay back here. Yeah, I can't get enough of it. I love Lunatick Cosmetic Labs so much. They're a little pricey, but for me, and for someone who bodies the aesthetic, I love them. Next, so this is also from Lunatick Cosmetic Labs, and this is the palette that I was kind of referring to when I talked about the Natasha Denona Retro palette. So this is the Timeless palette. Again, just the packaging on this. This is one of the most beautiful palettes I've ever owned. And then the top actually swings, and you get the shades right here. So you see, very reminiscent of the Retro palette. And honestly, between the Retro and between this palette, I'm leaning more towards this palette. And it is hinged on the back here, but it does have a mirror on the back. So you can also use that mirror. But this palette, it's just so unique. The color story is a bit modern renaissance-y, like the shades color stories. It's not a brand new color story, but I am tickled pink by this palette. I truly am. It's just the packaging, the quality, the shades, the fact that it still has a mirror. It's just, it stole my heart. So this one, I don't know if you've seen, I've actually had this on display in my background because I've loved it so much. And this is the one I've been reaching for over the Natasha palette, which takes a lot because I do love the Natasha formula. So the fact that I'm reaching for this over a similar color story in Natasha Denona's formula, I think that says a lot. Okay, well, speaking of Natasha Denona, we still have some left. So I mentioned the Pastel palette earlier. The Natasha Denona Pastel palette comes in at number 3, and I did rearrange this one. So this is the palette rearranged. I was super inspired by people on Instagram rearranging their palette, and I was going to follow someone exactly, but I decided to kind of do something a little bit different with mine. I love this palette. I have to say, unfortunately, some of the shades actually do, like, need a little bit building up, which I've never had an issue with Natasha shades. It's particularly like these blues and green, like teals right here in the middle. Those shades, I actually had to like pack on color and reapply after blending because they weren't that great. So I love the idea of this palette, but I have to say, this is the first time where I've seen shades in a palette from her not perform up to the standard that they have previously set. So I was a little disappointed there. But I still love the color story, and I still love having pastels here. So I still need to test a little bit more to give like my final thoughts on this palette, but overall, I'm really enjoying it. Coming in at number 2, we have my birthday gift from my fiance. He, like, I literally mentioned wanting this palette during my no-buy before we moved, I think. And then he saved it and then bought it for my birthday last year, which is just incredible. I love him. So this is the Natasha Trichrome palette, and Yes, I remember I went back and I rewatched the BWOW when I first saw this, and they mentioned that if you liked her chromium liquid shadows, you would love this palette, and I agree. Like this row of greens, love it. The trichrome shades, beautiful. I just love this palette. I think I rearranged it. I can't tell if I rearranged it or not. I'm tempted to think that I did because all the greens are together, but I don't know. But I really like this palette. I've been reaching for it more so than a lot of other Natasha palettes in my collection. And like I said, I brought some new ones in. So I think I need to redo my Natasha ranking. But just the greens get me and the duochromes get me. And speaking of greens, my number 1 palette is a palette that I wanted forever ago. And the first few times it came out, I believe it totally sold out. Couldn't get my hands on it. And I was going back and I was working on this project where I'm rewatching all of my BWOWs. And I'm making a list of products that I said that I wanted, but I never got for whatever reason. And this was one of the products. And it was in stock. And I bought it. And it's the best purchase I've made of the year, I believe. The Give Me Glow Juicy Olive. I finally got my hands on this. For someone who loves green shadows, I cannot believe it took me this long. She is a beauty. This is palette number 1. She is gorgeous. She is beautiful. She lives up to the hype. I'm in love. Oh my god, I love the size of the pans. I love the shades. I love the color story. Everything about this palette is stunning. Absolutely stunning. I really want more Give Me Glow palettes now after testing and trying this out and loving it so much. I think they have a whole cocktail collection. So I'm going to be looking into that. But I cannot believe it took me this long to finally get my hands on the olive palette because I remember salivating over this legitimately when it came out. Because if you've been on my channel for a bit, you know that I love green shadows. And this is like one of the best green palettes I've ever tried. So there we have it. Those are the last 10 palettes that I brought into my collection ranked. Let me know down below what you thought of these palettes, if you agree, if you disagree, or if you have any other suggestions for different palettes you think I might like. Thank you guys for watching, and I cannot wait to see you in my next video. Bye.